KSR's Rapid Reaction is celebrating again after Kentucky basketball went down to Oxford, got an exciting win, 75-66, in front of about that many fans, 75 or 66, because ice is hitting in that area. Started off like many Kentucky games, and they went down early as Ole Miss got hot, especially with their guard Abram, who could not miss. But the Cats clawed back and pulled away to win big in the second half, mostly powered by Antonio Reeves with his game-high 27 points on 6 of 7 shooting for 3, and then 18 points from Jacob Toppin, helping him out in the scoring column and helping me out tonight in recapping everything that happened. From our homes, we have Zack Gagan and Jack Pilgrim. Zack, I will start with you this evening, and we'll start with the MVP as our point of conversation. What about Antonio Reeves coming off the bench to lead the team, and should that be the role he keeps on as we continue?
Yeah, to borrow the Brandon Ramsey phrase, it is shoot them all, Antonio. He was 6 for 7 from 3 tonight. Pretty much just got all of his open looks, a lot of easy transition three-pointers. He was just lights out tonight. He had a couple of good shots inside the arc as well. It's just getting to the point where he's so shifty with the ball that he can almost create something out of nothing. And it's getting to, especially in a game like today where Cason Wallace was out. Savir Wheeler was injured for a little bit, even though he came back and actually had a really good game. Reeves proves that he is this team's go-to scorer. And especially when CJ is not particularly living up to his standards as well, it's a must-have at this point. Like, you almost have to have Reeves come out and score 20 a game, especially in a situation like this. But he's become very reliable over the last 5 or 6 SEC games as well. So he's essentially proved himself to be Kentucky's most important player right now. And they definitely don't win this game tonight if he even has half the performance that he did. So big game from Antonio Reeves. And whether or not he starts, Cal even said after the game on the radio, he's still going to play 30, 35 minutes. Doesn't really matter if he comes off the bench or not. Depends on how you look at it, because Kentucky kind of starts off slow when he's not in. And then eventually when he does come in, they start to hit their groove a little bit. So as long as he's ending games, I think that's the best thing for Kentucky. And he's got to be playing 30 minutes plus moving forward.
Reeves was the story in the scoring column, but really we should be talking about Savir Wheeler, Jack. To steal from Tom Hart, he had a Patrick Holmes-like performance, bouncing back with an ankle injury to earn a big win. So you got a little smirk from both of you. I liked Tom's nod to Pat Mahomes there, though a lot of our viewers won't like that. But Savir filling in for Cason Wallace had a good game, 9 assists, had 1 turnover at the end, just couldn't help himself. But it was good to see him play well with all the criticism that's been going on around him. And it's clear Cal was very defensive of Wheeler in the press conference, knowing that he needed a big game, Jack.
Yeah, he definitely not an offensive performance by any stretch of the imagination. 4 points, I believe, 2 of 8 shooting. Had a couple of layups there at the rim, but definitely not super efficient in that area. But pretty much did everything else you're looking for. Struggle a little bit defensively, at least on ball, but then we got to see him kind of pick up 94 feet and kind of do what he does best, force a 10-second violation for Ole Miss. That was definitely, a little bit of a defensive spark Kentucky needed. But yeah, he was the star of the show as a playmaker, kind of exactly what Kentucky fans have kind of come to love about him. Just the elite playmaker finding open shots. And it does help when you have a guy like Antonio Reeves make shots the way that he did. It's exactly what this team needed with Cason Wallace out. Unfortunately, he deals with a knee contusion that he suffered in practice yesterday. I was told before the game started that he could have given it a go if this was a game that mattered. I think they all knew that Ole Miss's 2 best players were going to be out, and I think there was kind of this running assumption that we don't really need to waste it if we don't really need him. So I'm glad that it worked in their favor. It was a little bit of a gutsy decision on their part. I'm glad Savir Wheeler played well, but I'm even more glad that Cason Wallace is going to be just fine, and I expect him back on Saturday against Florida.
Zack, they didn't have Cason Wallace with an injury, but they also didn't have CJ Frederick much, who played 20 minutes but didn't offer much of anything. Went 0 for 2 from the field, his second straight game, just offering nothing in the scoring column, being cold. Also, he kept getting booed. Do we know what was up with that, and what's up with the shooting, Zach?
I had this theory before or when I started because I could swear that there is a team in the SEC that just randomly picks an opposing team's player and just decides to boo them all game long. Because I know it's happened before against Kentucky. I think maybe last year or 2 years ago even. So I was almost positive about that, and then I started seeing some tweets about it saying that was what was the case. So I guess CJ was just the unlucky guy, and I guess maybe it got into his head a little bit. I don't know. Maybe that finger's still bothering him, or who really knows what the deal is with his shooting lately. It's just not even his, some runners in the paint. He's not really hitting those, and just wasn't a good game for him. And if he's not hitting shots out there, he's just not a good enough defender. No matter what Calipari says to stay out there and really give you enough to make that the Benny lineup work, because if he's not out there shooting or making shots, that kind of takes away from the whole scheme of having two outside shooters out there. So, but it was nice to see Adu come in and play a couple minutes, even if it was only 6 minutes for Adu Thiero, basically a career high, it feels like, over the last couple of weeks for him. So it was nice to see him come in and actually give a little bit of effort on both ends, get to the line a little bit. But Kentucky's going to need more from CJ. That's just straight up what it is. They can't rely on 27 from Reeves every night. If you can get 14 and 14 from both of those guys, you're probably in a much better shape moving forward. So who knows what's going on with him, but I don't know if it's in his head or if it's something to do with the finger or not, but something is clearly off with him and his shooting at least.
Jack, the pieces worked in the second half. Obviously, they scored 43 points, and that's, when they pulled ahead and won the game, mostly with Reeves' hot shooting. But do you wish we had seen a little more Adu after he played pretty well in the first half? And even Damian Collins, I thought we were on pace to a Damian Collins breakout Alabama-type game the way he jumped in, but then we never heard or saw from either of them again in the second half.
It's really frustrating because Adu is a guy that he does just produce every time he comes in the game. It's not always going to be, the right decision. He's going to make mistakes. And like you saw, he's probably should have been a goaltend on his one block, but he pinned that thing on the backboard and it looked really cool in live time. But he's a dude that as soon as he gets the ball in his hands, he's going to attack at the basket. He's going to, draw fouls and sometimes score at the rim. He's going to take shots. He won't always make them, but he's always going to give it his all. And that's, when you're in need of a spark with your, lead guard out due to injury, that's exactly what this team needed. I would have liked to see him a little bit more, but when Savir's playing okay, I guess there's not a huge need for him. But yeah, Damian, I also kind of like the comment that Cal gave after the game saying he kind of called out Oscar Tshiebwe and said he just has not been good enough in the pick and roll. His defense has been terrible, just calling a spade a spade. It's been terrible. He kind of gave them a little bit more credit than I think was necessary tonight, saying that the pick and roll defense was a little bit better. I still thought it was pretty terrible. And Dane Bradshaw, who knows a heck of a lot more than me, was calling it out literally for all 40 minutes of how bad it was. So definitely needs improvement there. Cal said if Oscar would continue to struggle in that area, that Damian Collins was going to take his minutes. And in the very short spurt that we got, I think Damian played a total of 2 minutes, but in that 2 minutes, 4 points, 1-for-1 shooting, 2 for 3 from the free throw, or 2 for 3 from the free throw line and a rebound. Played hard in those 2 minutes, and I'm all for letting him kind of ride out a little bit more here in the near future.
Just how does it not get better? They kept doing that high ball screen. We saw the lob over the top again. I mean, this is Ole Miss. This isn't some big powerhouse offense we're talking about here. They've got one win in the conference, and they're just picking Kentucky apart with in the pick and roll like every team has done. Kentucky has to be working on it. How are they just incapable of getting any better at all? It's the same thing every single game. Is there a solution, or is this just life throughout the rest of the seasons?
Yeah, I don't know. I think at this point, this is what it is. You can't fix something when you're over halfway through SEC play. This has been something that's been going on from the very beginning of the season. Every single SEC team that we've been going against is zeroed in on. And it was kind of a weird press conference, Zach. I remember before we went up to the Hoop Hall Classic, Bruiser Flint kind of went out of his way to be like, well, Alabama didn't expose anything. Everybody knows that Oscar sucks in pick and roll. It's like,
which is not a better answer.
Is that a good thing? Like, is that a compliment to know that, okay, it wasn't Alabama that exposed it, it was other teams exposing it? I mean, it just proves that you've had more time to acknowledge that this is a pretty significant issue, and it hasn't been addressed yet, and it's still not getting better. So good job. Congrats. Like, I don't know what we were looking for there. Here we are 5 games later after that kind of awkward press conference, and it's still just as bad as it was, and teams are still exposing him for his deficiencies in that area. So, yeah, something's got to give. I don't care if it's Damian Collins playing more or give Ugo a chance. Cal said it's kind of frustrating for Ugo to not know when he's going to play or how much he's going to play, if he will. And he's definitely one of those guys that I'd like to think that he might be a little bit better with his, at least he'll be able to recover with, his shot blocking successes. So I don't know. I do not have an answer to that. And it's a shame that the staff doesn't at this point either.
Well, Oscar's defense is flawed, but he's still got his double-double, so shout out to that. It's got to be like 48, 49, 50, I don't know, something around there. Also thought it was nice the team went 12 for 12 in free throws in the second half, so shout out to that. And they're staying overnight instead of coming home. I'm sure John Calipari hates it. Jack Givens said on the post-game radio show they could be like 3 o'clock tomorrow before they get home. The bad weather here in Lexington and then the bad weather at Ole Miss. So that sucks for the team. Maybe he'll let them have their phones tonight. But we'll let them deal with that there in Mississippi. Here in Kentucky, we have work to do. So thank you for tuning in to yet another KSR Rapid Reaction after Kentucky got a victory to improve to 6-3 in the SEC. For Jack and Zack and Drew, we're out of here. Go Cats. Hit subscribe. Good night.
Go to Cat.